Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Peace and love, everybody. I'm Brother Ali. This is the Travelers Podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful to you and for you because you're the reason that this podcast actually has life. And I'm also grateful to and for this guest that we have this week. I think most people probably know Eligh for being an underground hip hop artist. And he's part of a juggernaut from the West Coast in this culture known as living legends. If you are familiar with underground independent hip hop music, particularly from, the early 2000s, the late 90s up until today, then you're well aware of the impact and the importance of living legends. But if you're not, I wouldn't even know how to begin describing them, other than the fact that it's just a miracle that this group of artists from LA, which is, Eligh and Merce and Scarab, so many of these artists from LA that joined forces with the artists from the Bay Area in Northern California. And they just formed this extremely organic and dynamic group of people that is just a miracle that the fact that each of them individually exists. And then also the fact that they were able to come together in the way that they did and just form this powerhouse of truly organic. As organic as DIY and independent as it gets. These are people that recorded music together in their homes, in their basements. They had a warehouse that they converted into a living space together. They went on tour in an RV with nobody's permission and with no backing and with no industry involvement whatsoever. And the fact that they've stayed together for all of these years is really incredible. You just got these amazing artists like Merce, who we did 2 episodes with Merce a couple months ago, and artists like Eligh and like The Grouch and like Lucky I Am and Scarab and Aesop the Black Wolf, or now they call it the Black Aesop, because there's Aesop Rock from New York, who is not black, the Black Aesop, you know what I'm saying? Arata from Japan, like the amazing group of individuals and of artists and what they've been able to do, their influence, their mark on the culture, the art form, the business practices has just been really incredible. And so I'm happy to be able to have more and more members of Living Legends on the podcast. Eligh is best known for his music, but he's also a visual artist. He is also somebody that's been in the NFT space. He also is an extremely amazing and incredible entrepreneur. He's somebody who's made music with his mom. Shout out to Mama Joe, but to me, he's one of the artists in this space that has poured so much of his life and his heart and his wisdom and his travel journals and his thoughts and meditations and prayers and just his innermost feelings into his music. He's somebody that came out, his first project that I was aware of, that he got on my radar in the late 90s. He did a project in 1996 when we were all fresh out of high school and, struggled with substance abuse and did so really publicly, and then also got clean starting in 2005, I think, but then he put a project out in 2010 called Gray Crow, which to me is a really foundational project, not only for his career, but for the culture and for underground independent hip hop. I'm really blessed that I'm on that album. He sent me a song around that time and asked me if I would be on it. And I was like, yeah, it's a dope song. He's a dope guy. I had no idea the project that I was actually becoming a part of. And so I'm really grateful to be on that album because it really is just such a monumental one. And he opened up and shared that part of his journey, just like he has his entire life. So I'm really grateful for that. And then Eligh and I actually went on a tour with The Grouch. The Grouch did these end of the year Christmas tours called How the Grouch Stole Christmas with just an amazing cast of artists. Mr. Fab did it one year, Evidence did it one year, Zion I did it. We've just had such an incredible, he's had such an incredible run. He's done it with Merce. He had one with the whole Living Legends crew. Really, really dope. Really something that we would all look forward to doing and to just knowing exists. There was one that he did with Merce, the project with Grouch and Merce called These Hands. And I think These Hands, I think they have another album coming soon, which is all super dope. This is really beautiful stuff. But I met Eligh when I had just come back from Hajj. I just made my first pilgrimage to Mecca. This is now 12 years ago. And Eligh was releasing and doing the circuit for his new album that he had just put out, which is the Grey Crow album, really talking about his reflections and meditations on being clean and sober and going through recovery and going through therapy and the awakening. So we kind of had this like mutual awakening period and then got to do it on the road together. So he's just somebody I really value, not only for who he is as an artist, but who he is as a human being. And whenever I talk to friends that I really know, especially these people that are just really nuanced, dynamic people that can talk so much on their own and have so much to share and so much to offer, I'm never sure how these conversations are going to go. I prepare and I have all these questions and I think about, like, I come into them thinking, okay, is this going to be like a retrospective on this person's life? Or are we going to start with them growing up and how far back they know in their family? With Merce, we were able to do something like that. And then I talk to people like Amir Suleiman that I know really well, and we come in and it just doesn't feel right. It would feel forced and corny for me to kind of uh, impose this linear conversation with somebody that I know so well. And so we got on with Eligh and we just talked until he had to run and get back on daddy duty. Eligh is somebody who got married kind of like later in life and had kids later in life. In the underground hip hop space, and this with my artist friends in general, there are some of us that have kids really young. So, me and Slug and Talib Kweli and a number of us had kids really young. And then there are some that waited until later in life. And some of us had children really young and then also had children later in life. And actually me and Slug are both in that camp. And then there are some of us like Immortal Technique that's just like, what's going on, man? Is this going to happen? What's cracking? But Eligh is somebody that did that later in life. So feel really grateful and blessed to be able to have this time with Eligh. I do think that we need to have more conversations, and I think that he and I could actually probably circle back more than once a year and just kind of talk through stuff. So this is our conversation with Eligh. We're brought to you as always by Zakat Foundation and by BetterHelp online therapy platform. Really grateful that you're here. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Travelers Podcast. So what's good? What's happening with you, brother? How are you?
Boy, I am in the midst of fatherhood
Mm,
as a new dad, though.
mm,
Like, I mean, she's going to be 2 in December, but for me, um, I'm still in those stages where it's a lot. I feel different than I've ever felt about, um, I guess, what's important, what goes up to the top of the list, and what gets dropped down, so to speak.
yeah,
Priorities. So it's been a balancing act trying to find where the happy medium is, because obviously your family, it becomes number one, and honestly everybody else doesn't matter as much as my wife and my daughter. But also, how do I continue to bring money in to support everybody? And in the midst of all that, she was a quarantine baby, so she comes, and then, you know all the non-activity related to COVID and how all of us were just kind of doing nothing. And it kind of pushed me into creating from home and like being able to make money from home, which I was doing pretty well, man. I was pretty excited by the idea of actually not having to leave home to make money. Although I love being on stage in the moment, doing the act of performing, connecting, energy exchange, all of that. But everything that comes with it, dude, I could easily retire from, like, no doubt. And some
yeah,
people, some fellow musicians I bring that up to are like, not me, I love it all the way. I'm like, hey, I mean, I love the performing, but everything else, dude, if I can make money from home, I just won't do that. I'll do shows selectively, maybe closer to me, just to get out there and do it and have fun with people. But if I can create from home and do my visual art, produce and eventually, hopefully, score film, and do it all from the house, dude. I mean, what's better than that?
You know, for me, like so much of the performance piece is like that's how I've always connected. So like
Right.
I feel like for all of us that do what we do, this is especially it's really on blast with artists because artists live so much out loud. But really
Mhm.
everybody, the people, human beings just have different motivations based on our personality types and how we're constructed. And it's really important to know what those things are. But so some people are driven by the desire to just be in control or for power or for notoriety or that they want to express something or they're just so driven. For me it's connection, and I think me and you have that in
Mhm.
common. But
Yeah.
what I have learned by observing you is that like I've always had to be in a room with the people to feel connected. Like if I'm not in a room performing with people, I don't feel connected to my audience. I miss them. I feel like I'm on my own in the middle of the ocean or something.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you seem to have really mastered, especially in the pandemic, was a way to really create and curate and also to maintain a sense of community with the people that follow you, not only so that they can support you and keep you going, but I mean,
Right.
just even from observing you, it feels like your community of supporters and listeners are still really active and like you're still really connected with them.
Man, that's just cool to hear coming from you or from any of my peers to say that because it makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time, so to speak. But you're right. I mean, finding a way to connect with people has been the story of my career in a sense of keeping it going this long. I just feel when the young people, when young people come to me or you and they say Ali or Eli, what would you advice would you give to an artist who's just coming up trying to make their way, et cetera, et cetera. I'm always tell them to be as uniquely strange and beautiful as you are. Don't feel like you need to follow any pathway or this and that. But the thing that I put across the most is to be your genuine self in your music and express the most personal of personal feelings and be vulnerable. There it is. I'm looking for the word. I'm like scatting around. Just be vulnerable with your music, dude. That is how you create lifelong connection that can survive stuff like a pandemic when we're not out there and we're not able to be physically in front of each other, putting hands on shoulders and like looking you in the face and giving hugs. Cause that's, I know you and I are like that in the same way. Like I hug everybody, man. I'm just like, I enjoy that part of it. So like you, I do miss that, but there if you always create that way, if you're that type of creator, then there's always going to be people that are people that want to support you, period. And so that's what I tell young people that come to me. I'm like, be as vulnerable as possible.
I've always loved you and I've always loved your music, but two of your projects like really stick out to me. And the first one is your first album. The one that I heard was As They Pass. That was the first time that I really heard it. And when I listened to that record, like you already were so fully formed as an artist. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those early Legends things, and when I go back to even listen to early Atmosphere, like all of our friends, you go back and listen to their like cassette recordings or like 4-track recordings. You hear the spark of what's there, but it usually took a long time for people to fully develop. But I feel like, of course, you made big spiritual and personal strides in your life. And I feel like that really showed up on Grey Crow. That started really showing up around the Grey Crow time. But man, on As They Pass, like as an artist, as an MC, and the main thing that sticks out to me is like your flow was already intact. You already were in the pocket. You already understood how to ride the beat, but your confidence and your presence was already like fully formed, like that young, that early, and on that first project.
What dude, that's crazy, man. I mean, all I could do is imagine myself at that time recording that album. And to think that you hear a confident kid back then who had dreads over my face, a hood over the dreads, my sleeves pulled over my hand, like trying to invert myself inwards because I was so shy and so not confident, except when I did that.
Right.
Except, so you see me on stage, I would be back by the DJ booth, kind of bobbing my head, hiding. And then when it's my turn, I get up, bah, 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 and then I go back into the hole. And it also, like, back then I started realizing that, oh, if I drink this alcohol, I won't feel as nervous, I won't feel as self-conscious. So that was the beginning of that journey as well. But it's amazing to think that, yeah, dude, because before As They Pass, that wasn't the first thing I ever did. Like, Merce
Mm.
Scarab and I were making 3MG stuff at 15. And before that, I was in junior high with Scarab, who I rapped in front of for the first time. I rapped in front of Scarab out loud as the first person ever. It was on a school bus. We were in the seventh grade. And to hear someone react to me, not just me doing it in my room, but somebody say, "Whoa, dude, we should have a group." And immediately is like, "We should be a group." And I'm like, "Really? Dope." And then everybody that I was rapping out loud to was like, just like, "Whoa." And then so I started thinking, maybe I'm actually, but all that comes from Poor Righteous Teachers. All that comes from Wise Intelligent, and and all the rappers that I fell in love with that were a little off from center as far
Mm.
as everybody else during that time. And so by the time I got to As They Pass, I did a whole album with Log Cabin. Like, Merce Scarab and I were already a part of a big conglomerate. Like, then when that broke apart, Merce left, and then I ended up leaving, going up to the Bay. It's such a weird story, Ali, because it was never planned to meet up with Merce or Grouch or anybody again. I just went to the Bay with my cousin because she lived in Berkeley and my mom kicked me out and it was time to go. And I'm like, let's go. And somehow I meet Grouch separately from all of that and end up at Grouch's basement. And you know, he's teaching me how to use the ASR 10. He has the 4 track. His basement is where I made every single beat on As They Pass and recorded all of it while he was doing his pizza delivery that he would do during the day. I didn't
Mm.
have a job. I was a little bum. I was a little cat coming at your door scratching. Yeah, man, come on, let me in. I'll eat your
Mm.
leftovers. I'll sleep under the couch. I don't care, man. Just let me smoke your leftover beaties, and I'll just make beats while you're not here. And
Mm.
because Grouch allowed me to do that, which I knew bothered him. He was at work like, this little fucker is at my house making beats when I want to be making beats,
Right.
recording a full album while the equipment wasn't being used. And those were all my first beats on the ASR 10. Like, he taught me how to use it. And it was just, nothing mattered. Food didn't matter. Nothing mattered. I was just so happy being in that funky basement making those songs. The next thing you know, who comes walking down the stairs? Merce. I'm like, what? I hadn't
And
seen him in 2 years. We're like,
and y'all went to high
what?
school together, right?
We went to high school together. We went through a lot of stuff pre even coming to the Bay as friends. And next thing you know, there we're back in the same. We're back together again with and met these guys at different times. It was just weird. It was very strange. And yeah, and that was the beginning. But to hear you say that, it makes me wonder because some people, you know, you get those people that say every new release, there's at least one person. Oh, boo, rap like you used to rap. I'm like, it's funny to me now. It used to really get on my nerves, but you
Right.
know, over the last 10 years, I'm like, you know, more love you, bro. I'm love that you love how I used to rap. But even if I tried to write the way I wrote and rap the way, there's no possible way. I was a different person, literally a different person.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it if I
Well,
tried.
spiritually and psychologically, you definitely are. I mean, when you talk about like people that are vulnerable in their music, you get to really grow with them as human beings. And I feel like you're one of the people, and it's such an amazing space, it's particularly in underground hip hop, that like we're rewarded for that. Like it took Jay-Z a long time to really be like, yo, when my dad left, I was actually just hurt and scared. And I didn't have the tools. I didn't know emotionally what to do with all this pain I had. It took him a long time to really be able to get there because he's not being rewarded for that. You know, we're rewarded from that almost from the very beginning. And so, you know, our freedom to be able to be open and things, like I feel like even in that space, your personal growth, it really stands out, and your spiritual growth and everything you've been through. But I mean, just in terms of being fully when I listen to my demo tape, so when I listen to like Rites of Passage, which is my demo tape, and then I listen to As They Pass, and yours is 4 years before mine, like, man, it's so, you're just so fully formed and like you're so comfortable on the beat, you feel so comfortable in your voice. It's really amazing, man.
Man, it's just so cool to hear you say that, man. It's like a sense of pride for that kid back then because I'm just throwing him his flowers,
Yeah.
because it all comes from a sense of love, loving something so much and feeling so comfortable while creating that I
Mhm.
was not in my day-to-day life. Like I
Right.
said, I was so, had a confidence issue. And still at this age, I'm still figuring out the whys and hows and whats of all of that. And having a daughter now just invokes and triggers all that stuff again. So I'm like, there's no escaping. You're gonna learn why I feel the way I feel about myself and why I have these messages on repeat that no longer apply to me at
Mhm.
all, that were just lies from the beginning anyway. And,
Mhm.
that's there's never we're learning to the end. I mean, that's just it is what it is. And being in a relationship, being with the woman that I'm with, she's my mirror. We're all mirrors for each other when we're
That's right.
married or in a relationship. And it's almost like an accelerant. If you're really doing the work and being aware and paying attention, being in a
Absolutely.
relationship is an accelerant to growth.
Absolutely. It's like a spiritual and emotional, uh, yeah, like a boot camp,
Boot camp. There you go. I
like
agree.
constantly, like it's training. It's at all times.
Right. And it's funny because when I think of As They Pass, I think of me saying, basically, my message was what I was dealing with right then. I've always been that
Right.
kind of writer. A lot of the songs were, I'm broke. I don't want to work. I don't want to do your job. I want to do this. Um, I'm just trying to get some weed and then smoke a cigarette and be happy. And like, it
But you
was
also
not
talk a
that.
lot about having, the aspiration of having a
Mhm.
secure life. You talk about being one day wanting to be married to somebody and, like, really have a friend that you were in love with and did life with and,
Oh, it's
really
true.
could be secure. Like, I feel like so much of what you have become as a man, you hear yourself making that prayer when you were a kid.
Now you're touching on something that I love to bring up because it's such a strange thing for me, and I wonder how many other artists that write. I would say we because I feel like we probably write the same way. It's a stream of consciousness in a sense that a lot of people say this. It comes from somewhere. It just comes out of my hand, and whether it be God, whether it be the universe, however you want to put it, something's flowing through me, and I just gratefully accept it. And when it hits, right?
Mhm.
But there are multiple albums, especially later on in my career. I'm picking one out of the hat in particular, Therapy at 3, which came right after um, Grey Crow.
Yeah.
I had I was sitting in the car re-listening to the album because I'm going to start writing out the lyrics again, memorizing. That's how I used to do it. I would re-listen to the songs, write out the lyrics all again, and just repeat. And I started hearing things in the songs where I'm like, dude, I am talking about right now. It's 10 months later. The things I'm talking about on this track are happening to me right now. And it was freaking me out. I'm like, dude, how many times have I done this? And I start listening to other, I'm like, dude, what? I'm I'm literally telling myself what's coming. I
Yes.
swear it happens a
Yeah.
lot with my music.
Mhm.
And that's where the pulling it from somewhere else. I mean, if you're getting fed these things that not only are guidance for yourself, because I always tell people a lot of I personally don't like, and this goes for tweets, posts on Instagram. I don't like, you need to do this. And if you don't do this,
Yeah.
you need to do. I can't stand it. It triggers me
Unsubscribe.
so much. I'm like,
Unsubscribe.
unsubscribe. I always like to approach these things when I'm trying to share something with someone. I went through this and this is how I handled it, or I fell short. I would like to try this next time instead of you. Don't,
Right.
or when people say, don't go to the thing and do this, don't you, I'm like, man, you're missing me with that. And so the way that I write is open for interpretation for everyone, but I'm talking to myself most of the
Hmm.
time.
That's
I'm
right.
dealing with very much internal turmoil or whatever the case may be, or love or passion. It's always directed. It's a selfish sort of thing. It's like journaling for the world, you know what I mean? But it ends up touching people who go through a lot of the similar struggles that I've gone through, go through, or many of us go through. So it's just strange how it comes back. If I go back and listen, I'm like, wow, I was calling it. I was calling it 11 months ago.
Yeah.
Um, so that's interesting. I wonder if that ever happens for you.
I mean, so much of what I do is like, especially so much of what I have done has been like reporting on on a phase of life that I am just leaving. So a lot of times, like I process, and when I write a song about something, usually it's about a phase that like a chapter that's just ended, and I'm
Right.
reporting as like somebody that just got out of it. That's usually what it's been. There have been a few times where I'm able to actually gather my thoughts in the moment and talk about what's happening now. But in terms of predicting the future, it's a lot less like that
Right. Well, that makes
for
sense
me.
because you tend to go through some things, process it, and then you're like, wow, this is what just went down though from beginning to end. Whereas I'm in it, writing
Yeah.
to survive, so to speak. Like, what? Or no, yeah, but no, that doesn't even make sense either because what I'm saying is that I write about things that feel like they're coming or they're about to happen or sort of happening, but it really doesn't apply to my life till 10 months down the line. It doesn't happen every single song, but it happens. And especially with, of course, it was called Therapy at 3. I mean, it all made sense. I was just dumping over these amp live beats and all this stuff started applying later. And it also made me think of the idea that if I look at my life as a timeline, there are these moments that stick out. The big circle, like boom, I got clean
Mhm.
in 2005. That's a big one. 2010, I get this nervous, you could call it a nervous anxiety breakdown, exploding in my life. I quit smoking cigarettes at that point, 2010. And this whole other arc journey starts happening from there. And then um, the birth of your child, and there's other moments that happen that all were very significant to me. And I don't know what led me to that thought, but I wonder if you have that as well. Like if you put out the timeline of your life, there are
Yeah.
very significant moments.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I don't put out as much music as most of our peers do. I think the only one that
Right.
puts out less than me is Immortal Technique.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go.
You know what I mean? But like I put out surprisingly few, releases. Yeah, but
It's true.
each one of my albums usually is about one of those moments. Like when I realize that I've had one of those moments, then it's time to make a record about it. Or sometimes I'm in them as they're happening. But when I think about mine, it's like, each one of those moments is an album, and then I'll go and tour that album and then start living through something. And then once I'm able to understand the structure of it or see the narrative in my own head. And it's a trip that we think about things in terms of narratives and how you're saying that, things come up in your music because of how open you are and what a stream of consciousness it is. That, one of my favorite poet, one of my best friends, Amir Suleiman, just put out this album with Robert Glasper. But we were talking and he was saying that he's writing a film. He's writing this really dope movie, and I don't like reveal what it is, but he's writing this movie where he says that there's a character that he loves. He's like, I'm the creator of this character, and I love him, and I think he's the one of the most amazing people that have ever lived because I created him and I created him to be amazing. And so, in order to show both him how amazing he is, and also anybody that's watching or listening, watching this movie, I need to put him in really difficult situations because I can't show people how courageous he is unless I show people how terrified he is. So he's like, sometimes I'll write a situation where he's terrified and he does the right thing anyway to prove how courageous he is. But then I'll realize like he's not scared enough. The audience doesn't understand how terrifying this is. So he's like, so I'll go back in time in his story And I'll give you a flashback in his story. Like, this is what happened to him when he was 8 years old, that's now being triggered in this moment that he's in now. So you understand, he's like, I need to scare him even more so that the audience can see just how beautiful his virtues really are when it matters most. You know what I'm saying? And he was saying that, like, and Amir is a great, Sufi, like mystic Muslim poet, teacher, educator, speaker. And he's like, man, it made me understand the twists and turns that the creator, that the Most High is gifting us in every moment more, because of the fact that, like, the Most High, our creator, like the author of our story, is not living it in linear time the way we are. The same way I'm not watching this movie, I'm writing this movie. But the person who's watching the movie, and also this character, they have to live it in linear time. But the creator is not, and the creator knows what the end is and what the meaning of all these things are. So it's like it really is like a testament to your own openness and your receptivity, like how receptive you are in those moments that you're creating, that you're able to get these glimpses, so that the meditations that you're having in your music are actually predicting your own future.
Right. Well,
It's incredible, man.
that's crazy, man. I just, I like to, I've been saying this lately. I would love to not be metaphorically get my ass kicked every time it's time for one of those moments on the timeline. I'm tired of getting kicked off the mountain and falling on my face, or dropping off a cliff when I could have had a much simpler, simpler path if I would have just paid attention to the whispers. If I would just hear what is being spoken to me, and take the necessary steps along the way to make it a gradual, thing, instead of getting kicked where it's like, okay, dude, you didn't listen. Now you're getting thrown off the mountain. Good luck. You'll make it, but it's going to hurt this time. I'm like, I'm done with that. Can I just be done with that kind of stuff? Because it's been too many of those. I'm good, man. So my whole theme of the past few years is listen to the whispers, bro. And I'm talking to myself, like, listen to the whispers. And if I can do that, then all those big, huge, painful growing moments won't be so drastic and so shocking. You know what I mean? Because I am a person, a spirit, whatever, who wants to keep climbing. I see, I use this metaphor as well. Like, a lot of our friends got to a certain place on the mountain. They're like, you know what? I'm good here. I'm just going to stop. I'm good. I don't need to go any further. And I'm like, are you sure? Because
It's so hard to see a great person just start coasting.
coasting, or I don't want to say give up, but
It's
just
so hard to see that, man. Like,
get
yeah.
comfortable, I would say. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
comfortable with halfway, or I'm just good here. I don't want to do any more of that, what you're doing. My feeling is always that I want to keep going,
Mhm.
whether it be spiritually, whether it be family oriented, but definitely art wise. I've never been satisfied because I always want more, but I've always been trying to, celebrate the small things that may seem small to me, but that I've always like said, yeah, I just did that, but I want that. So it's like now I'm like, that was great. What you just did, what you just said was really awesome. You're a good guy, good work. Let's keep it going. I don't, I don't know if I'll ever get to do a lot of things I want to do, but this yearning, the fact that I jumped into the NFT space the way I did is just a part of that anxiety in my stomach that
Yeah.
pulls me. And it's
Yeah.
like, you're coming, let's keep going. And it goes along with, it reaches into the life of me as a human being, my body, my health, the way I'm taking care of myself, the way I eat, the way I'm exercising. I mean, to veer off on another street here, this is just what I'm dealing with recently. You know, we had COVID hit, quarantine, sedentary lifestyle, not doing really anything, babies born, 2 years of that. Now I'm like in the kitchen doing dishes. I turn and I pull a muscle in my calf. Was I playing football, running in the street? No, I was
Right.
doing dishes. Something happened in my calf. It popped. I was like, dude, that is not good. And next thing you know, I'm limping around the house. And, my body is screaming at me. I even hear it in my head like, it's time. It's time to go, dude. Simple. You don't need to become an Ironman or go to the gym and push weight. Look, you're walking with your kid, that's good, but now we got to take it up another notch. Let's get into yoga again. Let's start stretching the body. Let's get into Qigong because I've been wanting to do it forever. And actually, that was one of the last conversations I had with my brother Zumbi, is talking about Qigong, which he was heavily into. He was
Mm.
giving me some tips. And it's all about the breath, breathing, and breath is life. And just, bringing the vitality back to my body because it's a tight knot and it's, there's some atrophy there. A lot of the stuff I do is sitting. Like I draw, I'm sitting for hours. I'm with the
Right,
kid,
right, right.
whatever it may be. I'm like, it's time now. And those are the whispers I was talking about. The whispers are happening. They're coming in the form of a little pull in my leg. But the
Mhm.
next thing you know, I ignore that and I'm having chest pain or, I'm just jumping to things. But it's like, dude, listen now and go. Like, let's go.
Esther Phillips has a song, and a lot of times when I hear these, like, my favorite music is soul music, so I'll hear like these black artists sing a song and have no idea, like that's a Burt Bacharach song or somebody you would never imagine. So I don't know if somebody sang it first, but Esther Phillips has this joint called "From a Whisper to a Scream," and that's the whole
There it
thing I've been
is.
thinking when you're talking about like I wish I would just listen to the whispers, because man, if you don't listen to the whisper, then it's gonna come back as a scream.
Yes, dude, that's the whole. I need to hear that song, man. That is the whole. That's the whole pie right there, bro.
You hear me talk every week about the connection that I have with Zakat Foundation on this podcast because of the fact that they've been supporting us from day one. And that's true. And I'm so honored and grateful and excited to be in the work with them and in in the challenge and in the struggle with them. But really, this connection goes back even further with my sister Amna Mirza and I, because Amna comes from the world of corporate marketing and nonprofits. And that's really where she laid her foundation, started to spread her wings, really built her toolkit in thinking creatively about what the possibilities are for any project that she is involved in. And I come, of course, from the world of art and culture, from the music industry. I roll my eyes at this term, but the entertainment industry. And that's where I was able to build my experiences and also really think creatively. And so when Amna went to Zakat Foundation, which is an organization that I already had great respect for, but I know that the type of creative thinking that she's gonna bring to a project like that, it was just really exciting to me. And then when we mentioned to her that we're gonna do this podcast, I think she was equally excited. And so this work and this connection has really been a good one. Zakat Foundation is a global charity that's headed and run by Muslims, but they are really creative and innovative and nuanced with the way that they approach the work. So when I say that, I mean that it's a Muslim-led organization, but they don't only help Muslims, they don't proselytize, and they just have been really honest about entering into an industry that where they saw some real opportunities for growth. And I think that's true because so many in the Muslim community come from um, places where NGOs and big kind of like corporate humanitarian organizations have come in. And so many of us and our families have had direct experience, live experience with these organizations that have the best of intentions, but a lot of times there are challenges to delivering goods and services and resources in ways that are dignified and that help, that have maximum benefit to the communities. So one of the things that I love that they do is that they partner with people on the ground and in the communities that they're seeking to serve. And that's extremely important because if you come in, with these kind of grandiose intentions and thoughts and ideas, but you don't connect with the people, a lot of times you miss the nuance and you miss the complexity of their lived experience and of the world that they're navigating. So having them be in the driver's seat is extremely important. Also, if we just repeat the ways that nonprofits have operated in the past, a lot of times we miss the opportunity to think creatively and to grow the capacity. So one of the things that I love that they did with their programming in general is just that they have new approaches that are courageous in the sense that they identify some of the downfalls and some of the needs for change and growth that already exist in these industries. So check them out on social media, Zakat US. You'll be able to follow the work that they do. Go to their website, zakatfoundation.org, and check out all of the ways that they help around the world and the amazing, incredible work that they do. And find a way to support their work and find a way to become part of their amazing efforts all over the world. It's an organization that I know, that I trust, that actually excites me with their creativity and with their willingness to look at things as they are and then imagine them as they could be. Really grateful to be rocking with Zakat Foundation. The Travelers Podcast is sponsored this week by BetterHelp online therapy platform. And when you use our link to sign up with them, you get a discount and we receive a commission that supports the work that we do here at the Travelers Podcast. So it's a win for everybody. So many of the conversations that we have here weave together these themes of art and culture and spirituality and practice and community, and then also advocacy and organizing and truth telling, working in community. And all of these things share the common thread and the common intention of just opening up space and channels and opportunities and permission for us to examine ourselves as a world, as communities, as societies, but also individually, to look at ourselves and to understand ourselves better so that we can heal and become whole and actually unlock potential to become the people we want to be, to build the families that we want to be, to build the world that we want to live in, and have the communities and the type of relationships that foster that growth and that healing and that change so that we can heal and be better. And so, one of the opportunities to do that is therapy. And we're major proponents of therapy on this podcast. So many of the amazing people that we've had as guests have been therapists and have been specialists. And even though I know those people, I have major challenges, roadblocks, barriers to just being able to have them treat me as a client. And so many people have those barriers. I don't live in America, so I'm not covered by their licenses. And also, I'm an independent entrepreneur, self-employed person, so I don't have the type of insurance where I could be able to access that. So I have challenges of my own. I learned about BetterHelp on a podcast. And BetterHelp is a network of licensed, qualified therapists who come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and also bring together different types of approaches and expertise in the field of mental health and of therapy and of healing. So you go to betterhelp.com, BETTER help, HELP.com/travelers. That'll let you know that we sent you and that you learned about them from this podcast. And it'll mean that you'll get that 10% discount and we'll also get a commission. But what will happen, and what happened with me, is that you're taken to a questionnaire that just helps to gain some clarity for what is it that's bringing me to the table. What is it that's making me know I'm ready to start my journey with therapy or continue the journey? One of the things they ask you is, have you been in therapy before? Because a lot of times, we do therapy for a while and then we stop, or we have some sort of interruption, or we're just looking to change the platform that we use. And so, what is it that's bringing you to therapy? Do you want to talk about relationship with substances and dependency and abuse? Do we want to talk about our interpersonal relationships with our family or with, romantic partners, or, all of the above? Do we want to talk about our thoughts of suicidality? Have we been thinking about suicide? Whatever it is that's bringing us to the table, this questionnaire will actually help bring these things to the table and bring them out and make them known. Then the questions shift to, what type of therapist do I want to talk to? Do I want somebody from my background and my community? Do I want somebody that has a specific type of training? And then we're connected with therapists. They give us options. These are the different therapists that we think might be good matches for you. And then you're able to choose the therapist that you want to start talking to, and you start communicating with them immediately. And then you go into their calendar and you find times that work well for you. You tell them, do I want to turn my camera on and have a face-to-face meeting? Do I just want to talk over the phone? And it's all completely confidential using the BetterHelp app. their own, portal for communication that's completely secure and confidential? Or do I just want to start by texting with this person? And for me, from the beginning, I was assigned a therapist and I said, well, I'll just give it a shot, because you can also change your therapist whenever you want to. No questions asked, no funny feelings, nothing like that. There's just a button there on the side of the app where at any time, if it doesn't feel like a good connection, if it doesn't feel like this is the person that's going to help me explore myself and unlock my potential that I want to do this work with, it just doesn't feel like a connection, you just change, you just switch. And then they show you a new pool of people that you could choose from. So I couldn't recommend this more highly. I started using BetterHelp. I was assigned a therapist that is not from my background. And I was like, you know what? Let me just give it a shot. From the first conversation, she was asking me questions and she was really listening to me and really reflecting the things that I was saying to her in ways that were helping me see my own thinking and my own narratives about myself in ways that I never did before. And that's when I started thinking, you know what? I wonder if BetterHelp would partner with us on the Travelers podcast so that we could offer this service that I found out about through one of my favorite podcasts. So we're really grateful to be rocking with them. Go to BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/travelers. Like I said, you'll get a discount. You'll be able to start communicating with a therapist immediately and continue this journey of mental health and healing. You mentioned that your mom put you out at one point, and everybody that knows you personally knows Mama Joe. And even the people that just know your music, like anybody that knows your music or has seen you or followed you at any point, like knows how much your mom is part of your life and we have at least an idea and a sense of what you guys mean to each other. I wonder though, especially when we're talking about journey, like the way that the creator sees us. Our parents don't see us the exact same way. Like they're seeing it in a linear, they're experiencing as it happens too. But I wonder now, especially as somebody that's had children later in life, what do you imagine your mom was thinking when she had you? Like, it's almost impossible to shake the feeling of like, we have children. My first child was a son. And I'm like, man,
Mhm.
I hear it when I hear my songs for him that I'm like, this is the kind of man I'm going to mold you into. And so what I
Right.
hear is like, no, you're not. You're just a custodian for whatever the creator made this person to be, and you're either going to be good at it or bad at it, but you don't make this person anybody. This guy is who he is. And I wonder what do you think your mom was thinking when she had you throughout all of these different moments in life and what they've meant to you, and for her to have been such a pivotal role and tried to respond in different ways. And where do you think she's at now with seeing you and where you are?
Oh man. I was so attached to my mom. Like I would when I left town to go visit grandparents in Florida for the first time without parents, it was me and my sister who was younger than me, 3 years younger. She was chilling. She was good. I was homesick. Like I needed my mom. I was so
Mm.
mama's boyed out. I was like could not enjoy the trip. I remember and I must have been 9, something like that. My sister was 6 and I was the one sitting under the kitchen table at my grandparents' house, writing letters to my mom. I miss you. I want to come home. And
Uh,
I was so attached to her, dude.
uh,
And so we had this crazy bond because she, um, she definitely shared, when she would perform when I was younger, she would sing at, she was very politically active. So she'd be singing at demonstrations and I have memories of the smell of her knee high leather boots because I would
mm,
be wrapped around her leg and remember the smell of her boots, right? So I was attached to my mom. I watched her perform. I was in awe of her voice. She was my everything, you know what I mean? And she also had, those moments when, especially when she was more of a single mom and my dad, they had divorced, he wasn't there. She was doing the working, coming home, handling everything. She had anger issues. She would burst out. She would have like rage, like we'd be late for school to the bus stop. She'd get in the fucking car and just get in the car, just turn around the corner, like me and my sister in the back holding on for dear life. she skirts up to the bus stop and says, "Get out!" And we're all embarrassed, like, "Oh my god!" But my mom has done a lot of work since then, and she's a different person now. She doesn't have that same anger built up inside her. But that was her stuff. And as I know her now, later in life, she started to rely on me as somebody that she would come to when she was in spiritual crisis or having
Mm.
issues. And she became, it was more of like a sister energy than a mom energy for a while, until I started to think that that wasn't all the way healthy either. And I'm like, I don't, I want to be here for my mom. Like, I'm perfectly good being here for her, giving her advice, et cetera, helping her in any way I can, since she did that for me when I was little and for many years. But it was like a dependence that I was like, I had to like cut it and like separate the cord, so to speak. It was still there from when I was little, so attached to her. That was probably around 2010, 11 as well.
Mm.
Then, and we made music together. We made an album together. I brought her on tour for the first time, only time. And she'll never forget that. She always brings it up. And she brings up people that still reach out to her about that music. And it means the world that I was able to do that with her. And that she has people that recognize her in that way. But in some ways, it's like, the kind of the roles reverse and the parents become the children. It's a metaphor, but it's also what really happens in a lot of ways, even
Yeah.
when the parents are doing a lot of work. And not to say she relies on me like that anymore, but it's, the older she gets, it's coming where I'm going to be like, Mom, you're coming with me. Like, this is the next, you can't live by yourself anymore. You got to come with me. And my wife has been really on me about thinking about that stage.
Mm.
But it's definitely shifted from being like a koala attached to her to like separating and then her coming to me. But that whole cycle has definitely shown itself for sure.
I butted heads with my parents so much, and like throughout my life, like it was really challenging. And they both died pretty young. And when I look back on it, what I realized, especially like being a convert to Islam, I grew up around a lot of people whose parents were from Egypt or Somalia or Pakistan. And so their parents come from a distinct culture. And they're like, oh, I'm going to move to America, but I'm still going to raise Pakistani or Somali kids. Like, we're still going to be Somali. And to a certain degree, those kids might be Somali, but they're not really. Like, they're being raised in a different culture, in a different climate. This is not the same world. And so it causes tension. And I always felt like probably a lot of the tension between me and my parents was related to just me being them being from Madison, Wisconsin, which is like the whitest Leave It to Beaver place ever. I mean, you've played there. Like, it's like, and no diss to people that every place has a hood. I know there's people that struggle there, not dissing it, but if you live there, like, you got to know that's one of the places like that. But and then, I was raised with all black friends in inner city environments while the crack epidemic was going on in gangs, and my friends are getting shot and going to prison, and I'm getting arrested and all of this stuff. And so I wonder what that was like for you, knowing that your mom was part of a very progressive, conscious, anti-racist movement. She's a cultural person, she's an artist person. Was it different because of that? Like, did she have an
Oh yeah.
understanding for what hip hop was? And like, because I remember she told me that Merce moved in with you guys in high school.
Yeah.
She was like, she was telling me
Yeah.
stories like, she was like, Nicholas used to walk around our neighborhood with with a golf club to beat people
Yes.
up with. But
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so she was on that when you were in high school.
Oh yeah. She was very supportive of my interest in music and art for the entire time, dude. From the time that she took me to a place was called Rockaway Records. It was down the street in Echo Park. She would take me to the spot and she said, pick out a tape. What do you want to get? And I remember the first album I bought, I mentioned it many a times because it's forever stamped in my memory, was LL
Mhm,
Cool J I'm Bad. And
mhm,
that album changed me from as soon as I heard that, it was off to the races. I'm like, I don't want to hear anything else.
mhm,
This is the most amazing shit. So my mom would take me to the record store. I don't remember how often it was, but at least maybe once a month. and I get to pick out an album. And I remember my friend said, "You need to get that Easy E." I'm like, "Easy E?" I was like, "Oh, I'm on it." And I picked up Easy E, Easy Does It. And my mom said, "Put it in." And we got in the car. I'm like, she's like, "Put it in." I was like, "Okay, I put it in."
What the f
And
is up in the place to
in
be?
the place to be,
It's
yes.
like,
Right.
no.
Yeah. And my mom said, I thought she was gonna make me return it. She said, she she ejected it. She said, "Listen to this in your room. I don't want to hear this." And I was like, okay. But from then she didn't like, if you hear my kid crying in the background like that. She never uh she, she let me buy whatever I want music wise. And I even the only one thing that happens that's funny, back in the day, was I lent my friend the Easy E tape, and 2 days later or a day later, that mother of that kid came up to the front door with the tape and yelled at chewed my mom out. "You let me listen, you let your son listen to this shit, but you don't give this to my kid." Da, 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 da." And she said, she closed the door and she said, "Don't lend your tapes to your friends anymore." I said, "Okay, sorry." So
Amazing.
she was all about freedom of speech. She didn't like the lyrics that Easy E was saying. She didn't like NWA, all that. But once I started listening to Dell, Freestyle Fellowship, and Far Side, and some of this other, she was like, "That sounds cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is the shit, right?" Tribe Called Quest, even. The things that weren't, obviously that harsh. Although Ice Cube and Easy E and NWA, some of my all-time favorites, will always be for what it was, groundbreaking stuff. But my mom was very supportive, dude.
Mm,
So, and in this, and as far as like neighborhoods and being, for me, growing up in Echo Park, which was in the 80s, which
yeah,
was not what it is now. It
yeah,
was La Vida Loca. I mean, that's what it was. La Vida Loca, man. It was Mexican, Filipino, and mostly Mexican Filipino neighborhood with white fence and all these crazy gangs around there. And then you had the white kids like me sprinkled in. And then I got bused from first to ninth grade. I went to 32nd Street USC Magnet School, which is right off USC campus, across from the Shrine Auditorium, the middle of South Central. Why did my mom send me there? She sent me there because it was a performing arts school. It was the closest one to me. She knew I loved, from the beginning. She wanted to send me to a performing arts school. That tells you how much she supported that part of me. And that school shaped me. It made me who I am. The white kids were the minority at that school. It was the biggest blessing of all. I got to see the opposite side of the fence, man. And it was hard. And in the beginning, it was scary. I was also, not only was I the white kid, but I was the shortest, littlest kid in the
yeah.
class. So I was the little scrawny white guy. And there was a couple other white kids sprinkled in, but that was the story of my life from first grade, even up to first performing outside of the school, which was at the Good Life Cafe. Was the first place I rapped outside
Crazy,
of the cafeteria. And
crazy.
when you walked into the Good Life, there's a white guy. There's a white guy with dreads right there, but everybody else, it was no other white people there, and it was just a different time. Not to say it's any better or any worse, but it is what it was. I just felt
Mhm.
like this is leads back to what you were saying about as they passed. I was in boot camp really
Yes,
quick because being white, I was like, I have to be better than everybody
right.
to be accepted, respected, or for anyone to think I'm dope. I need to be super dope. So,
And you have to prove it
and
immediately. The first
you
word
got
out
to
of the
prove it
mouth
immediately.
has to make it very clear, "I'm here for a reason."
Yeah, you are here and you're bringing something to the table, and you're not just sort of okay. And we got up on that. So we signed up. You signed your name on the list. They called us. It was Scarab, me, and our boy Trinell. We got up there, and I was the last verse. Spit my verse, and it was just like high voice that, and people were just like, "What?" And if people didn't like you at the Good Life, it was a slow hum that turned into a loud, "Please pass the mic, please pass." And then they would shut the music off, kick you off stage. It was like you got the hook, boom. And it didn't happen to us. People were like, "What?" And I was like, man, it felt like I had entered the room right then and there. And it's an experience people don't get to have anymore,
Yeah. What
honestly.
year was that?
That was,
Because graduation would have been around 94.
it was not, it had to be, it was 92. It was
Okay.
92. I
Amazing.
think it was 92 is when I walked into the good life. I was a, no facial hair, little kid, and from there on, that's when I never lost the butterflies stepping on stage. Even now, yeah, I still have them. The last time I saw you, still have them. Going on in front of 12 people, still have them. It
Crazy.
doesn't matter. It's
Crazy.
it's always been there, and the desire to do my best has always been there. And I think you and I share that as well.
Yeah.
And I think we both had voice challenges along the road
Mm.
in learning how to take care of my voice and why my voice was tripping out on me, and learning that in-ears became the way to go for me because monitors were murdering my ears, and my ears are, I have tinnitus now, and one of my ears doesn't work as good as the other one. High frequencies are gone in my right ear. Um, and learning it wasn't really about the voice. It was more about the disease of perfectionism that I clung to for so long, that if I, this is a sense of control you were talking about as well,
Right, right,
trying to
right.
control the outcome on stage by over
Yes.
rehearsing,
Yes.
over practicing. And by the time I get there, um, you know, just being able to make sure that I don't mess up. Because if I mess up, oh my God, it's just the worst. But for
Mm.
me, it's losing control on stage. If I forget a vocal, a lyric, all of a sudden, I feel panicky, like I lost my way, like people are going to think less of me or whatever, when in reality, none of that matters. No one even really, they hear the vocals, and a lot of the
Right.
songs people want to hear the verses, but it's the energetic exchange that people are there for. They're there to be with you, just getting that energy going. So it took me a long time. The last couple years, I went from, oh, I got a show December 10th. I'm starting November 10th. I'm gonna start rehearsing. It's like, dude, a month, 3 weeks ahead. Like now I get like 2 days in right before, maybe three, maybe a week if it's new songs that I'm doing. But I had to really check myself, like, bro, you don't need to do it. Started harming my voice, is what I was saying. So I was
Yeah.
doing physical harm trying to maintain that control, main and attach myself to this being perfect thing that does not exist.
Well, mine is still an ego thing, but it's the ego showing up in a different form, and it definitely is related to control. But it's for me, it's like I rehearse to a certain degree, um, and I do take it seriously, and we put a lot of work into the show. But when I'm on the stage, I'm trying to push my voice so that I absolutely dominate the situation. Like I grew up listening to that live album that Boogie Down Productions KRS-One Live Hardcore Worldwide, and to me, that's the holy grail. And like, there's mistakes in that album, but his voice and his presence is so commanding, and like you can hear his voice echoing off the walls in the club. And so that's what I'm trying to
Right.
make happen. When I get in there, it's like, man, I want to hear my voice echo off the walls. I want to be the loudest person on stage. I want everyone to hear every single thing I'm saying. And there's times where it's just that's not what's going to happen today. And so pushing, even if it's working out, you know what I mean? Just to keep on doing that every single day. Like you're pushing your voice to a place where it's not supposed to be for a sustained
Yeah.
period of time.
Right. I've been hyper focused on my voice a lot in my life because I think it just goes deeper than the actual voice, and the need
Yeah.
to be heard is the obvious thing. I mean,
Yes.
you know, and making sure for me it's the cutting. It's making sure my voice cuts through
Right.
all the bass and the noise. I want to cut right into your heart. I just want to cut you, and
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but just like want you to hear me. I mean, I want to be heard well. I want to be a technician on stage. I want to be able to do things where you hear what I'm doing. You're like, wow. But now the in ears have just saved me a ton as far as my voice goes, because I'm not overextending because I hear what I'm doing in my ear. But letting go of being perfect as well is just the biggest one.
It's amazing because so many of us struggle with our voice, and it's something that people don't really talk about. Like I had never had a rapper really, another MC, really talk to me about my voice. It actually was Stokely from Mint Condition. I spoke to him about it, and he was like, "Man, you know, the polyps and the nodules and all that stuff. Have you been to
Oh
the ear,
yeah.
nose, and throat doctor and they show you they put the camera in your throat and you see like the
No, I
bumps?
haven't done that, bro. I
Man,
haven't. I'm scared to do that. I'm
I
scared to do
recommend it. I recommend it. And I've actually taken multiple people. There's an ear, nose, and throat clinic in Minnesota that's seen a bunch of like world class rappers because I'm like, yo, when you
Yeah.
go there, I'll tell you the exact doctor to go to. And Stokely was the one that actually told me, like, yo, there's a surgery, that where they'll actually take a laser now. They used to do it with a knife and they'll remove the polyps and nodules. And I'm afraid to do it. I probably should. But it basically returns your voice back to what it was before that happened.
Whoa.
And he started telling me all the people that have had this surgery. He was like, yo, Stevie Wonder had it more than once. And I'm just like, dang, it's not just people that are struggling or trying to make our voice into something it's not, just using the voice at that level is so big. And man, what I figured out is like, so, recently, like I'm trending down in a major way in terms of weight. Like I've lost, like since the beginning of me starting, I've lost like 35, 40 pounds. And I noticed that like me being on stage and just not carrying that extra weight, I can breathe better, but
Oh
also
yeah.
like the tension of me being on stage and feeling fat and like holding my belly in so I'm not breathing properly. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to overcompensate for being on stage and being like, I don't like this body. I wish I had a different, you
Mm.
know what I mean?
That's a big deal, dude. That's a
Yeah.
big deal thinking about the self-consciousness of how we appear on stage. Even even while being up there and the way I'm moving my arm, I'm like, "You're doing that weird. What are you doing?" I feel like Talladega Nights when you're like, "I don't know what to do with my hands."
Right,
Um,
right, right,
and
right.
just letting go of that, that has been, and even being on stage and being concerned about the next song because it's new, or I'm like, I haven't done this. I'm like, I just ask I ask God to channel. I'm just like, open the channel, send me
Yeah,
the words.
that's
I'm
right.
just going to be present. And
That's
being
right.
present is the I guess that's the everyday, I don't want to call it a battle, but that's the everyday situation. I'm trying to get myself to be present. Not thinking about what's coming, not thinking about the past. Just be
Yeah.
right here. That is the hardest thing for me to do. And yet that is where life exists. It doesn't exist anywhere but right here with you and me. If we're, and being on stage should be the ultimate experience of being present, because even though we're reciting and we're performing, there's people right in front of us that we are connecting with at the same time. And that's why it's so unique. And like a lot of people don't get to feel the things we feel up there. If you care enough about the experience of connection, which you're right, we both share that. And I do crave that and enjoy that while it's happening. It's just being in vans, being on planes, this, that. That's the part I'm like, I'm just over that. But you know what's weird, dude? Is I don't know if you've ever done performed on IG Live or done anything online where people are watching you. I feel the same nervousness. I
Mm.
feel the same feeling being in a room by myself, performing into the camera. I see, people will be saying little, emojis or like, oh, I love the song or whatever. I still feel like I'm performing, dude. It's crazy. If you want to take a rehearsal to the next level, do it live for people.
Man, when I moved to Istanbul, I did a New Year's Day, like, show. Um, and the thing with that one was that I missed the people so much, but the like, I have a good friend who lives in my neighborhood who is, like, a world-class documentary filmmaker. And he's somebody that I'm really close with, and so he filmed it, and it was him and his son and nobody else there. It was just the 3 of us on the balcony of this, and then, Yassine Bey was like, "Man, I wish I could introduce you." He was like, "I'm gonna come to Istanbul, and I'm gonna introduce you." I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Alright," and I mean, Yassine Bey will just show up somewhere like that, but he actually
He
ended
will
up
just do
sending in
that.
a video of him saying, what I'm pleased to present to you in this moment, the uncomparable. It's so dope. But so it's just me and my friend and his eldest son, who's like, he's his apprentice. And
Yeah.
what I noticed is like we started to do it, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. I was like, I'm gonna start over. And I was like, I know people are watching this. This isn't right. And so I started over. And I started performing for the 2 of them. Like they're holding cameras and I'm trying to connect with them as I do a song. And then once I started doing that, then it became beautiful. And then at the end, my man that was at the end, I got emotional, and so he turned the camera back on, and he was like, "What are you feeling right now?" And he's like, tell the people watching, like, how you feel." And I'm sitting there, like, crying, like, I just miss it so much, like, I miss that feeling of performing, connecting, I miss that, and it's weird because, like, we're giving the audience a gift. They're receiving a gift, but it's also they're giving us one as well, and it's such a mutual, thing.
That's why I always say exchange. I mean, it's the
Mhm.
exchange.
Yeah.
I see it as a circle. We send it out and we ask for it to come back. I'm like, please give it back to me because you gas me up. You feed me with your energy. If you're standing there staring at me or talking to your friend or on your phone, I get nothing back from you and I have to
Right.
rely on God, which I'll do that. The song that I just put out. And Ali, to get back to not get back to, but to speak on religion, like I've never been religious. My mom didn't raise me in any religion, but I've always, since I was a kid, going on that first bus ride to 32nd Street, I prayed on the bus.
Mhm.
No one taught me that. I
Mhm.
recall this. I'm like, you were a little first grader
Yeah.
praying on the bus
Yeah.
because you knew something was hearing you. And I've
Yes.
always known
Yes.
something bigger than me hears me, protects me,
Mhm.
and is there for me. And so that I've clung on to my whole life. I've had no problem with the word God. I have no problem with any way people want to view God. I think it's the most interesting stuff ever. But um, so I wrote this song. It was called Westbound. It was on this new album with DJ Fresh that we just dropped. It's a
Yeah.
talking shit song, dude. I'm just like, I'm just going. I'm styling. I'm talking. But in the chorus, or at the end of the first verse, I'm not going to say the actual what I wrote, but the tone was, if you don't give me the energy at the show, I'm good. I got God. I'm good. I
That's
say
right.
that like, give me the energy or don't. I got God give it to me, and that's where you just go off in your own zone. So it is a gift of
And then it's
a
like a
gift
gift to
giving
all
song.
of us that none of us knew about. And that's what I'm saying, like, I've never met a creative person that I will accept from them and that they are truly atheists. And I've had this
Oh
conversation with
yeah,
Sage Francis. Like, there was a period where he was Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, like, anti-theist, religion is stupid, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, okay, when you're creating your most the songs that really touch you and touch people, like, you're saying that you did all of that, or is there a moment where you just showed up and you honored the process, you knocked at the door so much? Because that's what Rumi says about praying and dhikr and all this, like, reciting and having mantras and these things. Like, we're knocking on the door, and you have to knock on the door, and you never know when the creator is gonna open the door and invite you in and give you something, or pass something out to you. And so it's like, yeah, we sit down every day or whatever our practice is, and then we knock on the door. And sometimes we make a shit talking song. Sometimes we make a song that nobody's ever gonna hear. Sometimes there's like this is all pretty whatever, but there's these 4 bars will probably be reused in something else. But we all know there's those moments where it's just like something is just moving through us and we're being given something. So that's one level. And then I realized it's really a language thing. For most people, it's a language thing. Like, they've been hurt. So many of people have been hurt with the name God. And they have a conception of God that I also don't have. That God is a man that judges people and God is, but there's another level with an artist like you, and I know you have this because I've seen it and I just know it from hearing your music, but also I've been on tour with you and I've seen it. Like, there are people who, like, the thing that you wrote, they tell you that it saved their life, and they're not exaggerating. Like, there are people who, your journey with, substances and sobriety, or just something that you said in their song gave them what they needed to move forward. They were about to kill themselves that night. They were about to do this thing. It's what they needed to go get therapy or get clean or whatever it is. And we don't even know that person exists. You know what I'm saying? So we talk about like the creator giving us all these stories, like everything that happened in our lives to write that song. All the stories, all of the inspiration that we're channeling, all of the things that have happened in us, all the, for us to be able to create that song and then that song to go out in the world with no big record label, with no distribution. It was never on a billboard. And somehow it found a person who also has had all of these things happen in their life that have aligned so perfectly with the way that it came out, the particular beat and the sample and the way the drums are programmed, the way it was mixed. It found them at the right moment. Their homie left a CD in the car and they got it and it touched them. And now there they are at a show, this person that you never knew existed. You know what I'm saying? And they're feeding your ability to do that thing. Is
No,
really a powerful thing. And so when people thank you, I'm wondering, how do you feel in those moments? Because I've seen you in those moments where someone is standing there in tears and like their best friend or their boyfriend is standing there behind them, like, dude, it's true. And she's just like, you saved my life. And he's like, it's
it's
true, bro. No, it's true.
true. It's true.
Yeah. Like, what are the things that how do you receive that when it happens?
I have to receive it with complete open arms. I never get tired of it. I had someone recently, it was him and his girlfriend, and the guy was like saying these things you're saying. And he's like, I'm gonna cry, man. And I'm like, hey man, it's all good. I'm giving him a hug, I'm tapping him on the back, I'm looking him right in the face. You know, when I was 18, I couldn't do that. I'd probably be looking down, I'd be looking this way. But now it's the biggest gratitude I could feel is somebody saying these things to me and giving them love back and letting me know that there's a bigger reason why I do the things I do and why I decide to speak on the topics I speak on. And like you said, I have no qualms, no doubts that it is absolutely not just me. I might be carrying it out and like performing it in my unique way as a human being, but these things come to me and I just like you said, I'm just the instrument, and and it feels great. I mean, there's no better feeling than that, especially when somebody says they heard Grey Crow and they heard this song, and that's when they decided to go to a meeting, and now they hand me a chip 5 years clean. I'm like, dude, this is amazing. How could you get tired of that? That's just the best thing ever. Love it. I'm not uncomfortable at all by it either.
Yeah. You are someone that clearly values these creative relationships. You know what I mean? Like I know that there's these people that have meant a lot to you. Like everybody is well aware. Anybody that knows you or Grouch knows that there really is like a very deep bond that you guys have with the music. And, there's people that, you know, I know that you could probably say a lot about people like Pigeon John and others, but there's something about being a creative person also that not only taps us into spirituality and is definitely connected. Spirituality is definitely connected to the reality that our time on this plane is going to end. And it's not morbid. Like for a person that's really spiritually, well, you talk about being present, like the fact that I'm going to die actually makes me more present and it makes these moments more meaningful and it makes all the things that happen like it gives life to my moments and to my breaths. It gives meaning to the things that happen because of the fact that I'm going to pass on and that I won't be here forever, but that this music actually will stay behind. And I think that artists are particularly tuned into this idea that music lives forever. And then sometimes we lose our people, like losing Idea. Idea was really tapped into that. And then, he was one of the main people talking about death. And then he went on, he passed on. So I don't want to frame it too much more than that, but just, man, everybody lost Zumbi, but I know that he was somebody that really means a lot to you. And so I just kind of want to just ask you, what are you able to share about him or the experience of loving him or
Oh man, he was. I love that guy so much, and even with Grouch, my longtime brother, who I met Zumbi through. Obviously,
Mhm.
Grouch was working with Steve and Amp when we still lived in Oakland. So 1998, 99, he was making that a timeless song with them um, as a guest appearance on that song. And I remember thinking, they gave you a beat that's like chop. It's like, this is chopping speed. They should have hit me up, man. I remember being like, man, why am I not on that song?
Mm,
But so I didn't really get to know these guys. That was 98, 99. I didn't get to know them till 2008, something like that, where we went on a Christmas tour together, on Grouch's Christmas tours, and it was Zumbi, Evidence. It was that was such a great tour, and I really got to know Zumbi on that tour. And afterwards, Amp Live and I made Therapy at 3, and then Amp became just a brother of mine. But Zumbi, I always loved him so much. Such a balanced, good dude. Such a great example as far as a father, and his boys were just little lights, and our little lights, and the way he fathered them was inspiring. And I just loved him in so many ways. He was quirky. He did shit that annoyed me, and everybody does shit that annoys each other. There's no one that gets under my skin more than him, like Merce and Grouch. No one could get me upset quicker than those two guys. And that's because I love them so much, and we trigger each other in that way because we've been friends for so long. Zumbi and I had a different relationship. We talked about extremely personal, deep stuff every time we got on the phone. It was 2 hours. It was one of those things. Every time I got on the phone with him, it was 2 hours, dude. Because he was just, it's just, that feeling of like recognizing in another soul that that's my people right there. And
right.
you just love them in that way. So after he passed, it was a very big shock. Like hearing that news was like, what? And then the way he passed was just it was hard to let go of that. And I had a dream about him maybe a couple days after he passed, and it was a party. He was there. There were other people that passed. There's people that are alive. He's talking to people, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave him alone. He's talking to some other folks. I'm like hanging out at this party. Then he comes and he actually takes my hand, and we walk downstairs into this other room, and I just give him a hug. And it was like crying in the dream and really feeling that emotion in the dream. I haven't had a dream like that. It was more like, you know, I'm gone, I'm good, goodbye type of vibe, even though the way he was taken you don't want to let go of that until justice is served. But Grouch and I discussed the idea of justice and how is there really ever justice when someone's taken, when a life is taken in that way? Is there really ever justice? What, the guy put the guys in jail? Okay, doesn't bring Steve back. Nobody's not here.
Mm,
I miss him terribly, dude. I think about him. I see his boys, and it makes me just sick that he's not there for them. I think he kind of knew that he was going to go. When you talk to some of his family and the things he was saying in the last few days before he left, he mentioned I'm going to see the ancestors. He said that at one point,
mm.
and he kind of knew too. I think the way he went was awful. There's no other way to put it, and that part is hard to let go of. But I have. He was one of the first people that I cried for when they passed. It was such a shock, and it was for his children too. But anyone else that I've known in my life that's passed away, I kind of get this feeling of joy, dude. I'd never had this feeling of despair and sadness because maybe it hasn't hit me so close. But this one was, and it was the way he went, etc. But most of the time, I feel like you graduated, man. You're out of here.
Right. Yeah, you're done. We're dying. You're done with death. You're
Yeah,
done with
you're
this.
done
We're
with that
dying.
part.
You're done.
Yeah, you're done. Right. So in that sense, I don't know, man. I just love the guy so much. I miss our conversations. I miss the way we vibed in the studio. It was super smooth with him. And when I first started performing as ZG&E with Grouch, Zumbi, me, Amp Live, DJ Fresh, it was the funnest. It was one of the most fun combinations of people on stage I've ever been with. His joy on stage was something to behold. The smile was genuine. It was a childlike
Mm.
smile. When I was on the stage with him, I couldn't help but beam back at him and be super connected to that dude on stage. We had so much fun together. There's a picture I posted when he passed. That's him and I slapping hands on stage. His face, dude, he was just such a good spirit. And he was all about the energy exchange, all about connecting the same we were. He was in that same spirit. And he was just one of those spirits that immediately I knew this is my brother. I might not talk to him every single day or have known him the entire time, but he was my brother for sure.
Special thanks to my dear brother Eligh for being so generous with his time and his insight and his story and his journey. And just with himself, I'm sure you could maybe tell that we had to end in kind of an abrupt way. Eligh is really in the mix with Daddy Duty, and it's so dope, to have known him for so long and for him to have found this love not only with his partner, but also with this growing family and with his baby. It's just really dope to see your friends that would be great parents to see them become parents. And so much love to him. We definitely want to have Eligh back on the program. And much love to you for being grateful or generous with your time and with your attention and just being part of this caravan. Make sure to like and share and subscribe and comment and rate and all that stuff. I always heard people say that at the end of podcasts and would be like, man, okay, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. But now that I have a podcast, it really does help the show to grow and to reach other people that would want to join this thing. And speaking of which, go to brotherali.com. You'll be prompted to join the mailing list. Please do that. I write those messages myself. I don't send them out all the time. I don't send them out daily or weekly or even monthly. It's whenever I have things that I think you might want to know about. I personally write those emails and I send them out to the people in that mailing list. And then if you go to the section of the website called Join, you'll see on the website there are all of our events and our merch and our catalog. And, if you want to reach out to me and to us and request a verse or a beat, or you want to book me for an event or a speaking engagement or anything like that, you can do all of that on the podcast on brotherali.com. But then also, if you want to really engage in this process in a more meaningful way, go to the section called Join, where we've got a caravan of supporters, of listeners who are able to support us, but then also really engage in much more meaningful and personal ways. We've got all kind of ways to get down in there, and we certainly appreciate the fact that so many of you do it, and encourage those of you that really enjoy this podcast to check that out, because it really is meaningful. It's really dope, and it's a really just another level of connection that we're grateful to have. Special thanks to Amna Mirza, Mansour Panawala, to Last Word. Special thanks to Darian Washington and to Mark from Medina Hip Hop and to Ant for making the beat that is the theme song for this podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, the Cot Foundation, and to BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/travelers and get down with this mental health journey and wellness practice. You know what I'm saying, son? You know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? Know what I mean? I'm saying? Word. We're very grateful to you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Oh, and Travelers Podcast is edited and produced by Brendan Kelly, BK1. Peace and love.